Hi, Yvette here from sowhatYvette.com. I'm teaching a class using Jalie's 3245 Raglan T and Racerback tank, and pockets are part of the pattern, so I'm calling this video Pocket Perfection. I'm teaching in the online class using the pattern, and I'm using a very soft viscose jersey that I didn't think would stand up to pockets, so I didn't add pockets to my own sample. I tend to put stuff in my pockets, and I was afraid that they would stretch and bulge. But some of my students, of course, are going to want to put pockets on theirs. So I decided that I would do some samples making pockets. Because my fabric is so soft, I found that using the method that was described in the pattern didn't work for my fabric. So I decided to come up with a plan B. So my plan B was to change the method a little bit of the order that things were being sewn. I also used a product called Fusible Thread. So this particular one is made by Gutermann. The number on the top of the spool is color 111. Made in Germany. It's 50% poly and 50% polymid. And I guess it's the polymid that's probably fusible. So I put it in my lower looper of my serger, and I'm going to use it to help me shape this pocket. But before I begin to sew, I've done some prep work. This is the wrong side of my pocket. I've already cut it out. It's a little notch on both sides of the pocket. I've cut a strip of Fusi-knit interfacing, which is a knit, as you can see here. It stretches in one direction, but not nearly so much in the other. So I've cut a strip on the stretch wise, and I have fused it along the top of the pocket on the wrong side. I've also fused a slightly longer strip of this to the inside of the front where the pocket's going to start and stop sewing, so that it'll be stabilized at both ends. So I've got this fused into place now. So now I'm going to use my serger, and I'm going to use the fusible thread, and I'm going to serge the edge of this so that when it comes time, I can actually fuse the top of the pocket down before I have to top stitch it. That way I don't get any wobbles. So I've made a few adjustments on my serger, and I'll tilt my camera over to the screen so that you can see what I've done here. I just have to move it just a little bit. There we go. So that's the screen of my serger. My differential is set for just 1, which is normal. Both feed teeth are moving at the same speed. I've changed my stitch length to 3, a little bit longer than normal. And in my tensions, I have reduced my lower looper tension to 0.5 because the fusible thread is a little bit thicker than regular serging thread. I've also moved my knife a little bit to the left. The seam allowance on this pattern is only 1/4 of an inch, and my regular serger seam allowance is a little bit wider than that. So now that I've got everything set, I'm going to serge across the top of the pocket. So I lift the toe of the foot, put the fabric in as far as I can until it's at the needle, and now I'm going to begin to serge. So this puts the fusible thread on the bottom. I'm not cutting very much off, basically just trimming whiskers. Okay, so there's my fusible thread along the bottom. Just notice something has happened here. One of my serging stitches is not behaving itself, or one of my threads. However, everything is fine. So now what I want to do is I'm going to fold the top of the pocket toward the right side, and I'm going to serge along the edge, starting with the straight stitch. Before I begin, I'm going to use a glue stick, and I had it in my hand just a minute ago. Yeah, here it is. I like to use this Fons & Porter. It's designed for fabric. It's got a nice fine tip. Sergers and pins don't get along very well, so I like to find alternatives. So what I'm going to do is put a little dab of glue here at the beginning, and I'm going to put another little dab of glue here at the end, and then I'm going to fold them at that little mark that I clipped in earlier and just press it into place. And same thing at this end, just press it into place. Now that'll hold. Put the cover back on your glue stick, otherwise it'll dry out. And now again, with the fusible thread at the bottom, I'm going to serge along this edge. I've made no changes in my tension, my stitch length, or my differential at this point. Okay, so now I'm going to serge along the curved edge. I'm going to use my differential to help gather that curved edge in after I've taken a few stitches. Okay, so I'm sort of coming into the curve. So now I'm going to touch the button on my differential and I'm going to increase it to 1.5. And now I'm going to continue to serge. And you can hear that calibration taking place. I'm serging along the curve now. Now the curve is done and I'm going now back to my regular setting for this last little bit, which is the straight part. There we go. And the glue stick held my ends beautifully. I had no buckling at either end. So now before I go to the iron, which is what I'm going to do next, I'm going to trim off all these thread tails. You don't want to leave any of this fusible thread floating around because it sticks to your iron and then you have to clean your iron off. So first step is to cut all these tails off. My next step is going to be to turn it and go to the iron. So what I'm going to do is flip this. I'm going to move my camera out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to flip this pocket around to the wrong side. I'll use a point turner to poke these little points out. Then I'm going to press just the top of the pocket where the fusible thread is in the lower looper. And that'll fuse this down and hold it in place. I'll take it to my sewing machine, and from the right side I will now top stitch the top of this pocket to enclose the hem. Once that's done, I'm going back to the iron and I will fuse this seam allowance to the inside or to the wrong side all along the pocket. And I have one here that's completed so that you can see what it looks like at this point. So here I've done the lightning stitch across the top to hem the pocket top, and on the wrong side everything is fused into place. So now I can pin my pocket to the front of my garment, and because the edges are fairly stable, a few pins will hold it and I can top stitch it into place. At the top I would have lined this up with that fusible interfacing that's on the inside of my front where you can't see it. And that's how I'm going to do a perfect pocket.